I never told my best friend I saw her on that roof because she came down laughing like it was a joke, and I laughed too, even though I was standing there with my heart in my throat, wondering what would have happened if I'd arrived 1 minute later. Here's what really happened. It was one of those dull Sundays. Not bad weather, just gray. A little cold, not quite enough for a coat. I hadn't slept much the night before, and I felt that tired, slow kind of mood where you just wander. I wasn't planning on going to Lena's, not at first. But around 11, she sent me a text, "Rough week. Come by if you want." That was it. No details. But with Lena, that was how she asked for help. She never just said it outright. So I grabbed some junk food from the store. Stuff we always ate in high school when we were both pretending life was easier than it was. A Red Bull, some Cheez-Its, candy. I picked out her favorite, that king-size Butterfinger bar she always said tasted like childhood. I got to her building around noon. It's this old place near the edge of downtown, across from that laundromat that smells like detergent and burnt toast. She lives on the 3rd floor, the top one. No elevator. Just a narrow stairwell that always smells like old carpet and someone else's cooking. When I got to her floor, I noticed her apartment door was open a little. Just cracked. It was quiet inside. I called out, "Lena?" and pushed it open. Her shoes were by the door, and her phone was on the couch. But she wasn't there. I walked in, looked around. Nothing seemed out of place. No signs of a break-in. Just empty. Then I heard something above me. Like a light step. A shuffle. It didn't make sense, she lived on the top floor. That's when I saw the metal ladder. In the hallway. Tucked up into the ceiling, with the hatch slightly open. I'd never noticed it before. My chest got tight. I didn't think. I just grabbed the ladder and climbed. The bag of snacks was still in my hand, and I remember thinking that was stupid, like, why didn't I put it down? I pushed the hatch open and pulled myself up onto the roof. And there she was. Standing near the edge. Facing out. Her back to me. Just standing there, barefoot on the gravel roof, arms loose at her sides. I froze. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared. I remember thinking she looked small. She's not a small person, she's tall, solid. But up there, like that, she looked so small. And then I said her name. Lena. She turned around. At first, I saw her face go blank. Just for a second. Like she wasn't sure what expression to use. Then she smiled. Big. Bright. Fake. "Oh my God," she said, laughing. "You scared me." She walked toward me, like nothing was weird. Like this wasn't terrifying. "I was just getting some air," she said. "You found the secret spot." I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just nodded. My heart was pounding, and I was trying not to show it. She looked at the bag in my hand and grinned. "Please tell me there's candy in there." I handed it to her. She pulled out the Butterfinger and said, "Perfect timing." We went back down like nothing happened. She put on Friends reruns. We sat on the couch, ate snacks, and talked about her new job like it was a normal day. I never brought it up. Not once. And she never mentioned it again. But I think about it all the time. The way she stood so close to the edge. The way she didn't flinch when I said her name. The delay before she smiled. The fact that she didn't have shoes on. I think about it and wonder if she was going to jump. And I wonder what would have happened if I'd taken longer at the store. If I'd stopped to check my email. If I hadn't come at all. If she would have fallen. If someone else would have found her. And I still don't know why I didn't say something. Maybe because she was laughing. Because she made it so easy to pretend nothing was wrong. Or maybe because if I said it out loud, it would have made it real. But I knew. And I still know. And I still haven't told her. The thing is, after that day, I started watching her more closely. Not in a weird way, just noticing things. Like how she stopped making plans in advance. Or how she never answered calls anymore, only texts, and only short ones. Her apartment was always a mess. Not messy in a lazy way. Messy in a way that looked like she just didn't care. Dirty dishes in the sink for days. Laundry half done. Lights off in the middle of the day. She'd lost weight too. I didn't say anything, but it was obvious. Her clothes started hanging off her. She wore the same hoodie over and over. She said it was just work stress, that her new boss was a nightmare and she was barely sleeping. But one night I came over and there was this smell. I didn't notice it right away. But then I saw the trash hadn't been taken out in what looked like a week. There were empty bottles on the floor, wine, cheap vodka, that kind of stuff. I hadn't known she was drinking like that. She used to say she hated the taste of alcohol. Rough day? I asked, trying to keep it light. She just shrugged. I'm off tomorrow. Want to watch something? I said okay. But I didn't relax. I couldn't. I sat on the edge of the couch while she curled up under a blanket like a kid, laughing at the TV. The next day, I went back to her place with food. I had this feeling I couldn't shake. Like if I didn't check on her, something would happen. Her door was locked this time, which somehow made me feel worse. She didn't answer when I knocked. I texted, waited. No reply. I sat on the stairs outside her door for over an hour. Eventually, she opened it. Hair messy, eyes swollen. Not from sleep. She looked at me and just said, I wasn't ignoring you. I just didn't want to lie. And then she walked away, leaving the door open. I followed her in. Sat down on the same couch. That time, there were no shows. No jokes. I looked at her and said, do you want to talk about it? She shook her head. No, are you okay? She didn't answer. Instead, she asked, do you remember that time on the roof? My stomach dropped. I nodded. She stared straight ahead. I wasn't just getting air. I knew that. Of course I knew that. But hearing her say it out loud made everything tighten. She looked over at me. You didn't say anything. You acted like it was nothing. I didn't know what to say, I told her. You were laughing. I thought maybe you were okay. She nodded slowly. Then, after a long pause, said, that was the second time I'd been up there. I felt cold. She wasn't looking at me anymore. Just at the wall. First time was 2 nights before. Around 2 a.m. I sat on the edge for like 30 minutes. I didn't say anything. Then she said something I still hear sometimes when I can't sleep. I don't think I was ever planning to jump. But I wasn't sure I wouldn't. After she said that, everything in me wanted to tell her, to say I saw her, that I was on that roof too, that I knew. But I didn't. I just sat there. I think I was afraid she'd ask why I didn't say anything sooner. Or worse, why I didn't stop her. Why I laughed. So I stayed quiet. And from then on, something changed between us. Not in an obvious way. We still hung out. Still texted. Still made dumb jokes about people from high school or our old bosses. But there was this quiet space between us. Like we were both avoiding the same shadow. About 2 weeks later, I got a call from her mom. That was strange. I hadn't spoken to her since graduation. She only had my number because of some old group chat. I almost didn't answer, but I did. She asked if I'd seen Lena. I said, not since last weekend, why? Her voice was tight. She's not answering. She was supposed to come by yesterday and never showed. Her phone's off. That was the first time I ever heard her mom sound scared. I told her I'd go check. When I got to the apartment, I banged on the door. Nothing. I had a spare key. She'd given it to me months ago after she lost hers once and joked about me being her backup brain. Inside, the place was worse than before. Dark. Stale. Bottles on the counter. Half-eaten food on the table. A glass shattered in the sink. No sign of her. Her phone was face down on the bathroom floor, dead. Her keys were on the counter. Her shoes were by the door. But she wasn't there. For a moment, I froze. Then I looked up. I ran into the hallway. The hatch to the roof was open. I climbed that ladder with my heart racing, the same way I did before, but this time I wasn't holding snacks. Just fear. The roof was empty. At least, I thought it was. Then I saw movement behind the metal vent unit. I walked over. And there she was. Sitting on the gravel, back against the vent, knees pulled up to her chest. She wasn't crying. She wasn't looking at anything. Just sitting. I didn't say anything right away. I just sat down next to her. We didn't talk for a long time. Eventually, she said, I wasn't gonna jump. I just didn't know where else to go. I asked her, why here? She said, because it's the only place I can feel the wind. That answer scared me more than anything. It wasn't poetic. It was flat. Numb. Like she needed to be reminded she was alive. She turned to me then, real slow, and said, do you remember that day you came up here? The Butterfinger day? I nodded. She studied my face. Did you already know I was up here? Or was that just luck? I hesitated. And then I lied. I said, it was luck. She gave a little smile. Yeah. Thought so. But I could tell she didn't believe me. And I knew she never would again. Sometimes I wonder if things would have been different if I'd told her the truth. If I'd said, I saw you that day, and let her see how scared I really was. But I didn't. I let her believe it was just timing, just a coincidence. Because pretending felt easier than admitting I almost lost her, and worse, that I wasn't sure what I would have done if I had.